So if Trump wants to be a gangster and bully and said, I'm going to take your money if you win, doesn't he realize that when people straighten their backs up and have a spine and respond to his bully activity?
Anna Kasparian and Dr. Cornel West joined Abby Phillip on CNN, where they sat across from a panel that leaned MAGA, as usual on Abby's show. The big focus was Donald Trump and the threats he's been making toward Zohran Mamdani. We're going to check out some clips from that panel with Anna Kasparian and Dr. Cornel West.
Tonight, Zohran Mamdani fires back at President Trump's threats to New York City funding. Over the weekend, Trump said Mamdani's campaign to be mayor will prove to be, quote, one of the best things to ever happen to our great Republican Party. He added that Mamdani, quote, needs the money from me as president in order to fulfill all of his fake communist promises. He won't be getting any of it, so what's the point of voting for him? Well, CNN's Aaron Burnett spoke to Mamdani about that threat tonight. Here's what he said.
So the number this year from the federal government was $7.4 billion to New York City. Are you okay if New York City loses that?
No, we will fight for every single dollar that the city currently receives from the federal government. And I look for examples across this country that showcase the best way to respond to Donald Trump's strengths is not collaboration, is his threats rather. It's responding with strength. And what we see in California is an attorney general of the state has estimated that for every dollar they spent on lawsuits against the federal government's threats to withhold funding, they won more than $30,000 in what would otherwise have been lost. And so we will take that same approach.
The paradox, of course, of Trump's post and also of his behavior in this whole situation is that he says this is so good for Republicans, and yet he seems to be willing to do almost anything to get Mamdani out of this race. It's too late now, more than likely, but why? Why is he playing both sides of this?
Abby, I think you're going to see more fireworks. I mean, Trump has a lot going for him in this particular case, just as Republicans have pointed to other Democrat politicians in the past and try to make them individuals that they identify with certain brands of the Democrat Party. And in this case, Mamdani has identified himself as a democratic socialist, or as conservatives would say, a communist. And so why wouldn't they play up some of the policy proposals and the cost of those and what it would mean in terms of the implications for the residents of New York City were he to be elected? And yes, you're going to see more.
But on what basis would Trump withhold $7.4 billion from New York?
Well, we know Congress controls the purse strings, so there's a lot that, that he would have to
He's going to really say, New Yorkers, you exercised your right to vote. We're going to take your tax dollars away from you.
Except New Yorkers spent almost 18% of GDP on federal taxes. I'm talking about New York City taxpayers, 18% of their GDP last year on paying federal taxes. The idea that the president is going to retaliate against local leaders just because he doesn't like their politics and withhold money that they're entitled to is ridiculous to me. And honestly, it sets up a really, really bad precedent. I would be disgusted if Biden did something like that. It disgusts me that Trump is threatening to do it just because he doesn't like Mamdani, doesn't like his politics, and wants to go against the will of voters in New York City.
Well, there's 2 points, if I can, that I want to make here. One is New York is the beating heart of the Democratic Party right now. One, you have a socialist, self-described socialist, that is not a pejorative, he says it himself, who's running for mayor of New York City. And you have Chuck Schumer, who is driving us towards a government shutdown because he's worried about a primary challenge from AOC. It is incredibly New York-centric, and it's the battle taking place in the Democratic Party.
True.
The second point is the former governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels. I was at this event back in 2009 in my home county, Lake County, Indiana, which has had a troubled past. It's where Gary is located. But people were complaining about all the corruption and the grift that was happening there and asking him for help. And he said, quote, I believe in home rule and you're entitled to all the lousy, clumsy, graft-ridden government you're willing to pay for. All the socialism you're willing to vote for.
Fair enough.
Well, I tell you this, though, man, I'm glad that you even described Democratic Party having a heart. Because it seems to me they've been so spineless.
I'm feeling nice tonight.
You know, you're very, very kind.
Well,
but I would say this,
let me ask you this, because it's to your, perhaps to the point that you're going to make here. But the Democratic Party, it's a big question. What should they do with Mamdani? And in the New York Times, there was an argument that they should embrace the eat the rich populism, a scorching economic message delivered by political outsiders standing up to the powerful. The villains in this narrative are the elites at the top of the broken system. Do you think that that's right? The Democrats should just forget about the labels and just embrace the economic populism?
Oh, and it is a populism. It's not a socialism. Mamdani's not a socialist at all. This is New Deal liberalism, New Deal social democratic policies. And New York is not just the center of what you said to be the Democratic Party. It's the center of the national and international capitalist order. So if Trump wants to be a gangster and bully and said, I'm going to take your money if you win, doesn't he realize that when people straighten their backs up and have a spine and respond to his bully activity, if New York wanted to boycott the federal government as a city, the government would go down too. And there's an identity in New York that cuts across class. Brooklyn, boogie down Bronx, I live in Harlem. New York would be able to come together.
So Pete Seat, the MAGA guest on Abby Phillip's CNN panel, made a point about Democrats running New York City. But what he leaves out is that Donald Trump, the wannabe mob boss in the White House, is also a New Yorker. So doesn't that mean the Republican Party runs through New York too? Anna Kasparian made a really sharp point here. Past presidents from both parties always stepped up to help after natural disasters. But Trump, he wants to play politics with it. If a state or city doesn't show loyalty to him, he talks about holding back disaster relief. That's outrageous because people in places like New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Portland all pay federal taxes. Yet Trump acts like their tax money isn't owed back to them when they need it most. Honestly, if that's the case, why should people in those cities even pay federal taxes at all? And then there's the language MAGA throws around. Anna pointed out how meaningless it's become. Trump and his allies will call someone a socialist, a communist, a Marxist, or even a fascist. Words that all mean different things, but to them it's just one big insult bucket. Add woke to the list too. Basically, anything they don't like gets slapped with one of those labels. None of it has any real definition anymore. It's just MAGA using scare words to attack whoever they're against.
So all this talk about socialism, that's just abstract so-and-so. Brother Zoran is a liberal, he's a social democrat, he's no revolutionary at all.
I actually agree with your take on that. And honestly, I think Mamdani represents the class-based politics that Trump pretended to be about and ran on both in 2016 and 2024.
And Brother Bernie didn't deliver. Ran on it too.
He did.
And many of us were with him, but
exactly.
He was unable to succeed at that level. But thank God the Brother Zohran, Kwame, Mamdani doing his thing.
I'll give you this much. I do think he's tapped into the issues that particularly young people care about. I mean, they can't afford housing in this country because the price is so high and interest rates are, at historic levels, and all of these challenges that they're encountering as they enter the world. The problem is that the policies that he's pursuing are not going to make things any better for them. And we know this because we can look at 4 years of Joe Biden and the spending spree that the federal government went on and what that meant for the cost of living and inflation in this country.
I think Joe Biden and Mamdani are very different. Joe Biden was all about public-private partnerships. For instance, like the infrastructure bill, which, Democrats love to talk about, love that it happened, but it really privatizes a ton of public infrastructure. There's a lot of corporate giveaways in there. Mamdani comes from a different school of thought.
Dr. Cornel West made a really solid point here. He explained that Zoran Mamdani isn't some radical socialist. He's basically a New Deal Democrat. And that's the thing. A lot of people today are calling for the same kind of policies that were popular under FDR. Kyle Kulinski talks about this a lot too. Democrats could lean into those ideas, let MAGA scream socialist or communist all they want. It doesn't really matter because they're going to use those labels no matter what. Think about it. They've called Biden a socialist, a communist, even a fascist. They did the same with Obama. They'll throw those terms at anyone. So instead of worrying about the names, why not actually push for policies that help people? That's the bigger issue Anna Kasparian and Cornel West are pointing out here. Most of the Democratic establishment, people like Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi, don't actually want to go in that direction. And that's the real danger heading into the midterms. Democrats can't just keep saying, Trump is a fascist, so vote for us. People are getting tired of that message. They want real action, not just fear of the other side. Like Cornel West said, the party needs a heart. If Mamdani wins, maybe it sets an example for Democrats to follow. And if the establishment won't step aside, maybe younger leaders will push through anyway. So what do you think? Do you agree with Anna Kasparian and Dr. Cornel West on the CNN panel with Abby Phillip? Or do you side more with the MAGA voices like Pete Seat and Robbie? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.